The sound of the doorbell ringing broke my profound focus on TV. Curiosity reached its height. I got up from where I was seated and walked over to the door, looking through the people. I pondered how in the hell she had managed to find me. I pondered just going back to the TV and ignoring the doorbell. But then realized if she had gone to the trouble to find me, she wasn't going to go away until she received whatever it was she came for. I hooked up the safety chair and then opened the door just enough that we could see one another, and then said, "What the hell do you want to talk to? You did not the way I departed to tell you that I had no desire in ever seeing you again, let alone talk to you. I have no idea why you left. I came home and you were gone, no telling me why, just all your things were gone. You can't be serious. How could you not know why? I know you heard me when I told you what would happen if you went through with what you were planning to do. May I come in?" I felt I'd best get it over with, and I unfastened the chain, stepped aside, and she came in, sat down on the couch and asked me for a drink of water as I went to get it. My mind went back to the night that started everything. I just got in home from work, and I discovered my wife, Alice, all dressed up. I didn't know where we had arrangements to go out. We don't. I have a date tonight. A date with who? You don't know him? A dude I work with since. He recently started working here. Hardly many people know him. He begged me to accompany him to Sylvia's birthday celebration because he didn't want to attend alone. He does know you are married, doesn't he? It doesn't matter. Nothing is going to happen between us. Besides, I don't want to go to Sylvia's party alone, and you won't go with me. So I told him I'd go with him. You understand why I refused to. I loathe being around that wicked woman with round heels. Additionally, I don't want you to interact with her in any manner. Get used to it, Sam. She's been my best friend since the first grade, and I won't turn my back on her just because you don't like her. I don't like her because she has been divorced 4 times, and each time it was because she got caught cheating on her husband, and I don't enjoy going to her parties because of all the drugs she has around. So you believe that just because she cheated, I'm going to cheat too, just because I'm near her? Now that you mention it, I think it is quite likely. Now you are dressed in an attractive little black dress, preparing for a date with another man. It is evident you are dressed for him. And I can only think of one reason why you would dress provocatively for him. That's a nasty thing to say to me. No, it isn't. What did you wear to the last 2 parties at Sylvia's? I'll tell you. In case you have forgotten, you wore trousers and a blouse to one and jeans and a sweater to the other. There isn't any doubt in my mind as to why you are dressed like you are for this gathering. Sylvia has finally talked you into trying someone else. I know from fragments of speech I've overheard that she has been pursuing you to join in her screw parties for years. I guess she has finally obtained what she's been pursuing. You're wrong. It isn't like that. Easy enough to prove. Me wrong. Don't go. Stay here with me. I can't. Tom is counting on me, and he is more important to you than I am. All I can say, Alice, is that if you go, you are kissing your marriage goodbye. Don't be ridiculous. This won't hurt us at all. Don't wait up, she said as she went for the door. Goodbye, Alice, I said as she stepped out the door. I think she heard the finality in the way I said goodbye. And she hesitated for a second or two. And suddenly she was gone. Did I overreact? I didn't think so. I was excellent friends with a number of the males in Sylvia's circle. And from them, I had learned all about what happened at Sylvia's gatherings after the individuals who didn't care to participate had gone. They developed into screw parties. I learned that while Alice didn't take part, she did remain around and observe. I also heard about Sylvia encouraging Alice to forget about that funny dirty you are married to and join in. You know you want to. And that Alice always responded that. Yes, she did want to, but wouldn't. Unless I joined in. My joining in was never going to happen. I'd spent endless hours trying to cajole Alice into breaking away from Sylvia and to stop going to her gatherings. But I could never make it happen. Because of that BF relationship. I spent a big chunk of the evening pondering what I should do. I was pondering divorce, but I truly didn't expect that Alice would cheat on me. But could I live with her? Given her to heck with you, Sam, I'm going attitude. I'd had 7 of what I believed were excellent years with her. The only issue was her continually spending time with Sylvia, whom I absolutely could not bear. She was trash as far as I was concerned. And Alice knew it. One could ask why, if I knew so much as I did about the goings-on at Sylvia's, I didn't just confront Alice. The answer to that was simple, at least to me. I had to know whether Alice would cheat on me if she was of a mind to cheat. And I challenged her about Sylvia's events and her claimed desire to join in. Would she just pull back from Sylvia's events and do it somewhere else at a different time and place? I might never know if she did it some other time and place. But if she did do it at Sylvia's, there were people I knew who would tell me. I still hadn't made up my mind on what I was going to do when I went to bed. The ringing of the bedside phone woke me up, and as I sat up, I saw the time on the alarm clock. And I wondered who would be calling me at 1 in the morning. Hello? Hello, idiot. Did I wake you up? What do you want, Sylvia? Just phoning to let you know your wife has finally found herself a real man. What the hell are you talking about? Just what I said. Alice has found herself a real man, a man who can give her what she genuinely needs here. Just listen. And grudgingly, I listened as the sounds of intimacy flooded the airways. And then I heard, God, sure, take me please, please, hard. The voice was the voice of my wife. I hung up the phone. 30 seconds later, it rang again. And I knew who it would be. So I picked up the handset and dumped it on the floor. One of the wonderful things about living in an apartment is that you don't gather a lot of stuff, since you have no space to put it. I had all that I wanted packed and out in the vehicle. And just over an hour I was in a motel by 3 and at the bank. When the doors opened at 9, I wiped out all the accounts and then drove over to my job. Told Jake I was departing without notice, and why. He replied he understood, cut me my final check, helped me load my gear, informed me I could provide him as a recommendation, and wished me luck. My phone has been buzzing since 7 and all the calls were from Alice. I finally switched it off and made a mental note to get a new number. Then I changed my mind. I didn't know if Alice could acquire the new number off of our cell phone carrier or not. I decided to toss the phone in the garbage can and buy a track phone at Walmart. I didn't need to do anything with credit card, as Alice and I didn't have any joint cards. She had 2 in her name and I had 3 in mine. By 11, I was on the road to a place I hadn't yet settled on. All I knew was that it had to be far and miles away from Alice. I finally landed up in Castle Rock, Colorado. I obtained a job in my field and settled in to start my new life. If there was a divorce, Alice would have to go for it. If went for it, she would know where I was. After a year, she may use abandonment as a cause. The only problem to that is that I wouldn't ever know, but then it really didn't matter because I had no plans of ever getting married again. The following 2 years went by and life was fine. I have dated some and had a buddy with benefits. And now this, I know you heard me when I told you. What would happen if you went on that date? You disregarded me, left on that date, and I did what I stated I was going to do. How did you find me? I exceedingly costly private detective. Why did you bother? You are my hubby, whether it goes thing and that kind of stuff. How did you come up with the money to hire a very costly private detective on a secretary's wages? I sold the house. What house? The one I was granted in the suit. I started to ask what suit. And what house but cork myself. It really didn't matter. Well, you squandered your money in the time it took you to get here because we are done. You did just what I knew you were going to do when you walked out on me to go to that party. And don't bother wasting your time trying to tell me nothing occurred. Your best friend called me at 1 in the morning and then held the phone to where I could listen to what was going on. Your God, sure, take me please, please. Hard came through loud and clear and told it all. She was successful. Maybe I ought to have pursued payback with greater vigor. I think I need to tell you what happened, since you weren't there to see or hear about it. I did not go to that party to get screwed. It was the farthest thing from my mind. I guess maybe I did overdress for the party. But Sylvia asked me to. For some reason, she didn't like Todd, or so she said. But she couldn't advise him not to come to the party because it was an open invitation to everyone in the office. She advised me to dress exposing and let him think he was going to get lucky. I loved dressing up. And so I did. Todd did take one look at me and assume he was going to hit the money that night. He kept to me like he was attached to me, almost like he was worried that if he wasn't around, someone else might get me. It was a fun celebration. And even though Todd lingered by, I believe the other guys thought I looked hot that night. And I did dance with several guys just as the party was breaking up. I started feeling dizzy and lightheaded. Sylvia informed me she thought I'd had too much to drink that night and she had me lie down in one of her spare bedrooms. I don't remember how or when it started, but I eventually became aware that I was being made love to. I believed I was home in bed with you until I heard someone say, "Hurry it up, will you? I'm next." I looked around and spotted Sylvia along with Todd and Ben Grady. I noticed a few other guys standing around without clothes. Apparently the guy was supposed to be the next one. You recognize me, Sam. When we make love, I lose it. I become nothing more than a vessel for pleasure. I'm not sure how many did me before I passed out. I awoke the following morning next to Bob Flanagan. He was leaning on his elbow looking at me. I noticed the look on his face and asked, "What?" "I never believed you'd cheat on Sam." "I'm glad you did though. I want to see more of you." I slapped him on the cheek, got dressed and went to the hospital. I informed them that I believed I had been given a date drug. They tested my blood and found traces of Rohypnol and ecstasy. Then they called the cops while they waited for them. I tried calling you but received no answer. When I got home, I discovered why I couldn't reach you. You were gone. When the cops interviewed me, I told them what I knew and what little I remembered. The first person they spoke with was Flanagan, who stated that he had no idea I had been drugged and had no intention of taking me. Because this is what always happens at Sylvia's parties and I knew it. I had even stood around and watched. He assumed that I had finally decided to give it a try. He gave them the names of all the men he knew who had harmed me that night. The cops assumed Todd was involved in what happened to me that night, but when they pressed him, he rolled over and said it was all Sylvia's fault. She just knew I wanted to join in, so she gave me a push. She assumed that once the drug had worn off, I would still be into it, love it, and want to do it again. She was correct about that. I loved it, but she messed up because she ignored the fact that I had repeatedly told her that I would not join in without you. You have to agree to it or I would not do it. When I was finished with the hospital and the police, a police officer brought me home and I discovered why I had not received an answer when I attempted to phone you. I broke down and cried for 2 days and then I hired an attorney and sued everyone who had been at that party and had wronged me. Most of the lawsuits were dismissed because they all said the same thing. Flanagan had said, but the suits against Sylvia and Todd were valid because they plotted against me. I won my suits, but Sylvia just had her house. So I was asked if I would settle for it. She's still owing $30,000 on it, but thanks to Todd, I was able to pay it off. Then I sold it. When I received the proceeds from the sale of the house, I hired a private detective and here I am. And you squandered your money on the private investigator. And the time it took you to arrive here. For what? To bring us back together. I adore you and feel right at home with you. You would have done well to spend your money on a divorce counsel. You may have used abandonment as justification. I do not want a divorce, Sam. What you want or don't want is no longer important to me, Alice. I did not do it willingly, Sam. I was drugged. But you went out the door freely, despite the fact that I had warned you that if you did, you would be kissing your marriage goodbye. You ignored what I said and went out the door again. The man or I left should have warned you that you would be wasting your time and money coming here. I need to be here if I'm going to bring us back together. You're not paying any more attention to what I'm saying now than you did when you walked out on me. Hey, heed, Alice. I do not want you. You cannot put us back together because I don't. The emphasis is on the fact that you do not want to get back together with a lady capable of doing what you did. Damn you, Sam. Can't you see that I didn't do it on my own free will? I was drugged. Alice, you are the one who does not grasp things. This is not what happened at Sylvia's. Although I expected it to happen and I told you that was likely to happen. It was what you did before leaving for Sylvia's. It was completely disrespectful to me. You arrived before departing for your date. Do not be silly, Sam. This will not harm us at all. Any of us may have been slain as you walked out the door to go on a date with another man. Now, please leave. I need to prepare for dinner. I am starving. I will eat with you and we can discuss. I'm going to convince you that you're mistaken when you say we can't put things back together. Her comments hadn't even faded when the front door opened and an extraordinarily attractive blonde entered, calling out, I am home, babe. What's for dinner? Then she noticed Alice and said, Who is this? This is Alice. You've heard me mention her once or twice. Hello, Alice. This is Beverly. Beverly shocked Alice when she approached her, stooped down, hugged her and said, Thank you for sending Sam to me. She then turned to me and inquired what I was having for dinner. I assumed we'd go out. I made a reservation at Angelo's. I will go change. Nice to meet you, Alice. Maybe we can get together someday and swap notes. Then she went into the bedroom. Alice, you need to leave right now. I need to change for dinner. Is she aware you are still married? Yes, she does. You need to inform her. I am going to fight for you, Sam. Get real, Alice. To fight for me, you must spend time with me and it is not going to happen. Get divorced and find another man. And when you find him, don't treat him like you treated me. When she said, Damn it, Sam, tears streamed down her face. Why don't you comprehend that I didn't cheat on you? I was drugged. So what? You had to be present to be drugged, and that's the point. I told you not to leave. I told you when you opened the door to leave that if you did, you would be saying goodbye to your marriage. You disregarded me. You declared your marriage over. Simple as that. Now, please leave. I had a dinner date to prepare for. I am not going to divorce you, Sam. And you need to tell your girlfriend that she will never be able to marry you. She cannot marry me. She is already married. And I am in the same boat. Her husband will not grant her a divorce and she will not waste money attempting to obtain one. I will go but not far. I can't get you back from a far distance. So I'm moving here. I am going to get you back. No, Alice. You are not. I've stated it countless times before and you should remember it. I mean it. I don't want you. Now go. She cried as she departed. Bev entered the room and she looked lovely. Why aren't you prepared? Decide not to go? No. It just took longer to get rid of her. I believed she was gone for good. Should be. I made it clear to her that I had no desire to associate with her. That is good because I do not intend to let you escape from me. I grinned and replied, give me 10 and I'll be ready to go. Here is the next story. At a stoplight. I was in the wrong place at the wrong moment. It was not my fault. A man signaled for me to pull down my window and advised me that my tire was low. I followed his directions to a nearby Walmart parking lot. Upon inspection, I discovered a screw jammed in my tire. Determined to solve the problem, I went inside and bought a can of slime. However, removing the screw made issues worse because air easily escaped. I was able to screw it back in and went to a gas station for a refill. I live just 15 miles away and plan to closely monitor the tire using the slime as needed. There was a convenience store about 5 miles from home and I could see the tire was getting low in the driver's side mirror. When I pulled in, they didn't have enough time to test the slime. When I placed it in, some green ooze, which I guess is called slime for a reason, came out, but the hissing of escaping air stopped. I was about to get back in my car when I saw a pickup truck come in. It was one of those massive vehicles with gigantic tires. It's so high that you'd need a ladder to enter. A tall, blond man walked out wearing cowboy boots and a massive belt buckle. I giggled briefly, but it died around halfway through. A stunning, raven-haired woman hopped down from the passenger seat. I knew exactly who she was. It was Rachel. The woman I had been married to for the last 18 years. What the hell? I was parked out to the side and they never spotted my car. It was the corporate vehicle, one of those small box-shaped imports and not particularly visible, I suppose. They were holding hands as they entered the store, and she was laughing, but not in an overtly amorous manner. I felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I fought to breathe and move. I feel silly standing there. I remembered seeing the man at Rachel's employment, a mental health facility, where she was the office manager and he was a caseworker. I recognized the truck from their building. I questioned why Rachel was with him and not at work. I tried to recall his name and it eventually came to me. Gerald Garner. I was about to find out. I went back into the car and waited. When they emerged from the store with cups of coffee, he assisted her in entering. They roared away, and I followed at a respectable distance. They drove to our house and he parked in the garage. I couldn't see any more once the door fell down. I sat down for 30 minutes, but the notion of the tire made me worried. I kept monitoring it, but if it was going down, I couldn't tell. After 2 hours, the door opened and they drove back past me. I held a file folder in front of my face, but I doubt they would have noticed anyhow. She was sitting directly next to him, and they were too busy staring at each other to notice anything else. Rachel finished work at 5 and still had 2.5 hours to spare. She intended to walk inside and see what she could find. She had to pick up her 15-year-old daughter Toby at 4. Rachel wasn't sure what to tell Toby about the discovery. When I entered the house, it was quiet. I could hear the faucet in Toby's bathroom dripping. I needed to fix this sound. The only other noise came from the air conditioner, soft whisper. I investigated the main floor and discovered nothing strange. I went upstairs and noticed that the bed had new linens. My heart fell. I slumped against the wall and slipped to the floor, feeling numb. For around 30 minutes, there was only one reasonable explanation. My mind raced, and I felt like I'd been drugged. When my stomach began to feel uneasy, I opened a Sprite. I felt warm. So I went to the restroom. I grabbed a wet washcloth from the vanity basin and scrubbed my face with cold water. I felt slightly better. Then I noticed something. The shower floor was damp. Someone had taken a shower before returning to work. I returned to the bedroom and perched on the edge of the bed, feeling disoriented. My wife and her lover had just been on the bed. I leaped up, appalled by the prospect. This was the crime scene. I wasn't sure what to do. Rachel was almost certainly going to get divorced. I had no lawyer contacts and was unsure how to continue. I needed to pick up Toby from school. What should I tell her? I strolled out to the car, feeling weary, like if I'd been awake for days. My head ached, and I looked exhausted. I wasn't in the best of shape to drive, but I couldn't leave Toby waiting. She was the only constant I could rely on in my life. My little girl was going to be okay. I had to be certain of that, whatever I did. I needed to think of her. When I parked amid the cars, I noticed her at the school's doors. She strolled along the sidewalk towards the automobile. So gorgeous. It made my heart ache. Toby inherited her mother's dark hair and skin, giving her a virtually Mediterranean look. Her eyes were stunning. Her hair is a blend of her mother's dark brown with gold and green highlights. The doctor dubbed them hazel, but they weren't like any other eyes he'd seen. Toby stood tall with the same long, honey-brown legs and attractiveness as her father. She opened the back door and put her backpack inside before getting into the car. She leaned forward to kiss her father, but then saw his anxious expression. "Dad, what's wrong?" she inquired, her voice increasing with terror. Toby needed an explanation. "I'm okay, Kitty," I said. "Nobody is harmed, sick, or anything. I need to talk to you, Toby. Let's go to the park and I'll just hold you and talk to you for a minute. Please don't ask me any more questions till we get there." "Okay, Dad. But you're kind of terrifying me," she admitted. "I understand, kitten. But everything is going to be well." I informed her, hoping that it was not a falsehood. It only took us approximately 5 minutes to reach the park. I'd pushed her on the swings 1,000 times. Rachel and I had sat on the benches and watched her play with the equipment. Happier moments. Was that what my life was going to be like? Just thinking of happier days. We sat on the bench. Her hand is in mine. Our arms swung as we walked. A gesture she recognized from her upbringing. When we sat down, she encouraged me to speak. "Just tell me, Dad, I can handle it." I hesitated, unsure whether I could. "I am not sure I can," I responded. I recounted all I had witnessed. Everything I felt, and tears streamed down my cheeks. She grasped my hand, bringing me comfort. When I finished, she snuggled into me. "It does not sound good, Dad," she said. "We should go home and ask Mom about it. We do not know enough. We need to talk to her." I kissed the top of her head. My heart filled with pride. My infant was far braver than I was. She pulled my hand until I got up. "Want to drive?" I asked her. Her eyes gleamed. She just received her learner's permit. As she thought, a cloud passed across her gorgeous eyes, but it passed swiftly. She drove cautiously home and Rachel's car was in the garage. This was it. She greeted us at the entrance with hugs and kisses for all of us. You would have assumed she was not a cheater. Either she was an Oscar-winning actor or I misinterpreted the entire thing. You too. Want to order takeout tonight? She asked. My reward. I believe we only need to chat to you for a minute. Mom, Toby said, okay, is everything okay? Baby? I do not know, Toby said. Let us find out. We entered the room and I sat on the sofa beside Toby. Rachel chose the uncomfortable chair she had been admiring. What is on your mind? She queried with no concern on her face. How was your day? I asked. She glanced at me quizzically. Just the usual stuff, she responded. A medicine rep delivered lunch from the onion dumpster. And I hardly had time to myself. Why are you asking? I was wondering if you spent the day at the office. Toby inquired. Of course I did, she replied. Why are there so many questions? What's happening? Were you in this residence with Jerry Garner this afternoon? I inquired. Her face became pallid. Absolutely not, she insisted. Are you accusing me of anything, Oliver? I see you, I told her. What? Didn't you see anything? She stammered. What are you aiming to accomplish? He is lying. Toby. I was in the office all day. No, Mom, I don't believe he's lying, Toby said. I believe you are lying. I will not be asking Angel. She would lie for you, Rachel stated. I will have David Jones call you tomorrow. What are you both doing? Are you attempting to fool me? Rachel asked. Do you think you can simply walk in here and attempt to trip me up? I suppose she believed that the best defense was a good offense. I said you lied, Rachel. You lied and all three of us know it. Why would you do that? She stared at me attentively. Okay. I was here, she said. This is why I didn't want to tell you. I knew you would ask questions and strive to learn more. Nobody is accusing you of anything, Toby remarked kindly. I'm just curious, that is all. What's happening? Rachel said. You don't know him. Why would you consider him a problem? I've met him a few times. Toby explained. It just creeps me out, but it doesn't matter. Are you involved with him? Rachel's gaze flickered between us like if she were in a cage. I didn't want things to be this way, she explained. I was not prepared. What were you unprepared for? Toby inquired. I just realized I am in love with Jerry, she added. She looked at me. I apologize, Oliver. It's just happened. We worked closely together, you know. He was just, I do not know. He feels like the other half of my soul. I couldn't help but feel a connection with you. We are in love. I was going to let you know when we were ready. We will marry as soon as we are both divorced. I apologize. I did not mean for you to find out. This way, Toby, everything is going to be okay. You will still be able to see your father whenever you want. Jerry has a lovely spot on the lake. He also has a daughter, you know. He likes you and we're going to be extremely happy. Are you serious? Toby exclaimed. I will not live with that guy. He might attempt to intrude my private at night. You're correct. I can see Dad whenever I want because I'll be residing with him. I won't see you anymore. How could you? She spun around and climbed the stairs to her room. I heard the door lock. Rachel faced me. She'll come around, she promised. Oliver Jerry is a good person. He makes me joyful, and that is all that matters. I simply glanced at her, perplexed. Who was this individual? It appeared as if she had changed overnight. I wasn't going to debate or discuss anything with someone who looked so different. Well, I said, I'm not sure what you are talking about. When are you going to move out? Moving out? She repeated. I am not. I do not have someplace else to go. We need to decide what to do with our lives. We'll all have to figure out the specifics before we know what the next steps are. I shake my head. No, you're moving out. You have 3 days to find a new location. Her jaw fell. What? You can't kick me out of my own house. If anything, you should be the one to move out. You are forgetting something. I said, this is my residence. I owned it before we met. It was paid for and I made it plain before we married. The house is not a marital asset. It is my name appears on the deed and yours is not. No, you're leaving my house. Where? She asked. Will you just chuck me out on the street? I don't really care where. I said, perhaps you could find somewhere nearby to stay. Her eyes flooded with tears. That really hurts, Oliver, she remarked. There is no need for harsh language. I did not mean to fall in love with Jerry. It's just happened. We've just connected. And I realized I needed to be with him. I didn't mean to hurt you. Ouch, you accidentally harmed me. I said, it's similar to when you tripped while running with a stick and poked your eye. Mom had always cautioned us about that. I understand it now. So that's okay. It was an accident. There's no reason to be sarcastic, she said. Why don't you accept that we have feelings for someone else? Oliver, I do not know. I said, maybe it's because you told me you loved me this morning and are now claiming you love someone else. I'm just a little perplexed. I care about you, Oliver. She said, I will always take care of you. I'm just deeply in love with Jerry. Okay, that explains it. I said, Rachel, you've told me every day for the last 18 years how much you care about me. I assumed that was why we got married. We cared for one another. I suppose I was mistaken. No, we cared for one another. She attempted to hold my hand. I shook her off. You have 3 days, Rachel. If you don't leave in 3 days, I'll have the authorities remove you and toss your possessions out in the driveway. Thank you, Oliver. She was afraid now. It does not have to be this way. We can still be friends. Jerry wants to be your friend too. We have Toby to think about. I told you I care about you and I do not want to lose you as a friend. We've been together too long for you to toss it away. I just stared at her for a minute. I could feel all of the pain and loss draining away, replaced by a rush of great frustration. Rachel, you must be out of your mind. I said, I am friends with you. With that person, I am inclined to disagree. You should inform that person that if they encounter me, it should be brief. Just before they quickly leave. I don't want to be around you, Rachel. You have 3 days. Then I do not want to visit your company again. I'll consult with a lawyer in the morning and you'll have your separation as soon as possible. I turned and headed to the bedroom, leaving her standing there, making noises. They were only noises to me. She followed me, chatting about friends. As I carried her items into the other bedroom, the closet was full of her clothing and I carefully brought an armful to the spare bedroom and hung them up. She continued to follow me, talking on as she attempted to put up the clothing. I took advantage of the moment and left the room, locking the door behind me. I heard her footsteps in the corridor, but she couldn't enter. A few minutes later, Toby texted me. "Are you okay, Dad?" I replied. "Yes, kitten, you?" She responded. "No, but I'll be fine. Love you." I sent a text. "If you need anything, please text me. Take me to school in the morning," she asked. I do not want to be in the car with her. KK. I climbed into bed and slept there for hours, trying to figure out what I needed to do. I must have drifted off about 3. And then my phone alarm went off. I got up, took a shower, and contacted my boss. I informed him that I was getting a divorce and needed a few days off. He advised me to take as long as I needed and made all the right sounds about how sorry he was. I made coffee, drank a cup, then prepared breakfast for myself and Toby. She arrived on time, looking as stunning as always. Toby soon completed her dinner. Rachel joined us and had some coffee. We didn't engage with her. It was time for Toby school, and Rachel questioned if she was prepared. Toby questioned me. "Ready, Dad?" Jingling the keys. She grabbed her backpack. "All right, act like kids if it makes you happy," Rachel said, walking away. She grabbed her handbag, flashed a peek back, and went. I took Toby to school, watching her kiss me farewell before entering. I thought of my friend, Dan, recently divorced, and contemplated calling him to ask about his attorney. He didn't propose his lawyer. Instead, he told I should employ his wife's lawyer. I noted the name and located the phone number when I called. A woman answered and placed me on hold after I expressed my desire. She agreed to meet me that afternoon, so I proceeded as usual. Our assets were restricted, so there wasn't much I could do about that. I could, however, stop her from racking up credit card debts. So I called and reduced the card limit to $1,500. This would also influence my spending, but I refused to fund her scheme. My appointment with Elizabeth Baxter did not begin well. She made some inaccurate assumptions, which needed to be corrected before we could move forward. She assumed I was leaving Rachel for someone fresh. "You are mistaken," I explained. "Rachel is having an affair with a married co-worker. They intended divorce and marry one another." Elizabeth apologized. "I will not represent anyone participating in such conduct. It didn't sit well with me." "I understand," I responded. "Our kid is involved and I'd like to minimize the impact on her. Is it possible for me to get custody of her?" "It's conceivable," she explained. "In theory, either parent is equally likely to acquire custody. In practice, dads are rarely granted custody, particularly of female children." "How old is she? And will she want to stay with you?" "She stated she did, and she is 15. I said that will weigh heavily. In the court's decision, she stated, "Children above the age of 14 in this state have the right to choose. Younger children's wishes are always considered. If she was really young, you wouldn't stand a chance of owning the principal residence. And the fact that a 15-year-old wants to live with you should be a key consideration in the custody agreement. This should not be an issue, simply do your best," I said. I drove home and thought about my alternatives. I needed a solution that was legal. Going to jail would mean losing Toby, something I couldn't risk. What options were accessible? When dealing with arson, it's critical to keep your own house from catching fire. This scenario demanded considerable consideration and approach. I believed his wife was as naive as I was. So the first step would be to inform her that I needed to create a list. I was going to tell her family that Rachel's mother and father adored me and they certainly loved Toby. So informing them was At the top of the list, but I wasn't sure how to approach it. Making sure all of our friends knew was also a significant priority. And I felt I could create enough of a social media storm to keep their lives exciting. That was the first item on my agenda. She controlled the family's Facebook account on occasion using Messenger. She went online and saw that Jerry's wife had done the same. She took some pictures and announced on Rachel's site that they were getting divorced, noting Jerry's new soulmate and posting a photo of him. She updated her password and logged out, feeling happy. She wondered how long it would take Rachel's friends and family to overwhelm her with Facebook messages. She hoped the other woman understood the message. She didn't know Rachel directly. She believed that if she were in the same situation, she would rather know the truth than be ignorant. I contacted my mother and the discussion was difficult, but she promised me that she and my father would be there for me. I decided to let Rachel notify her parents because I did not want to cause any problems between them. Rachel called later, furious and angry. "You're a jerk." Her initial statement delighted me. "You couldn't simply ignore it. I know you blocked me on Facebook. You should remove that post. My friends and family do not know the reality. They are all calling me confused. My folks are worried. I'm telling you, Oliver, take down that post." I answered, "No, you were not my boss. What are you doing acting like a child?" She countered, "Take it down." "Oliver, I am telling you why I inquired. You should be happy. This allows everyone to learn about your relationship with your partner. Are you ashamed that people know the truth about your conduct, Rachel?" She paused, perhaps understanding the paradox in her words. "Oliver, please take that down. It was not intended to be like this. You lost your capacity to choose what it would be like the moment you cheated." I told her that whatever right to evaluate any claim you had to my respect or even courtesy had gone up in smoke. "Rachel, I told you that you are the enemy now. Get used to it." I ended the call. My phone buzzed again instantly, but I ignored it. It was time to pick up Toby. I told Toby about the conclusion of my conversation with Elizabeth Baxter. And while she was relieved that she would almost certainly be with me, she was not happy. In general. "What's wrong with her father?" she asked. "I know you adore her, but she's always been a touch weird. I never felt like she was an adult, not like you anyway. It's always seemed like you had two children, her and me. Did you ever notice?" "Not like that," I said, "now that you mention it. She's always been a little impulsive, but I never imagined she would do something like this." "Well, we'll just have to make the best of it," she explained. "Dad, I never want to be in the same house as that person without you present. I don't care what you need to do. Make sure this doesn't happen, okay? I will do my best." I agreed to pick up pizza on the way home and I was just finishing my second slice when my phone rang. It was Bob, Rachel's father. I was not looking forward to this. I told Toby who it was and she instructed me to put it on speaker. He got right to the point. "Oliver, I'm not sure what occurred, but Rachel came here last night and asked if she could remain. Do you understand why she did that? Have you asked her?" I inquired. "She claimed you kicked her out." "Actually, I did, but has she told you why?" "No, she stated she would explain later, but she wasn't prepared." "Shouldn't we wait until she explains?" I questioned. "Cannot you just tell me?" he inquired. "Rachel has been having an affair with her co-worker, Jerry Garner. He intends to divorce his wife and she was preparing to divorce me. And they are involved with each other," I explained. "That is unbelievable." "Oliver, how do you know that?" I saw them together yesterday, I said. Furthermore, she informed me personally. Are you sure you didn't misunderstand? He asked. Toby addressed her grandfather. Hello, Grandpa. I have been listening. Dad has put you on speaker. There is no confusion. I was present when she told him I apologize, Grandpa. I love you. When he spoke again, he could hear her sobbing. His voice cracked. Do not cry. Love bug. Please, just be strong. Okay, I also love you. And so does Grandma. Oliver intervened. I'll try to talk some sense into your mom. Yes, I apologize. Bob. Do not worry about Toby. You are her grandparents and nothing can ever change that. I know you love Rachel and will do whatever it takes. I have more respect for you than I can express. I hope you don't hate me when this is over. That will never happen, he said. I'll find out what's happening. Call me if you require anything. It came out better than expected. Life has its ups and downs and you try your best to manage them. Many people have had first-hand experience with the divorce process. It was a long, tough voyage that never improved. Rachel appeared to be delusional. She believed she would gain custody of Toby. That did not happen. Miss Baxter lived up to her reputation. Toby expressed a desire to live with me, so I acquired full custody. After hearing Toby in private, the judge allowed Rachel full visitation. But none that would have Toby alone with her and Jerry Garner. The issue was eventually rectified. His wife divorced him, although the soul mate part seems to have been overstated. After learning of their affair, he promptly moved on to someone else. The lofty plans they had devised vanished like mist in the sunlight. The divorce was finalized after 7 months. Rachel changed her mind and wanted counseling during their second court appearance. Despite both parties' protests, the judge issued the order. They were intended to have 8-10 sessions. We had a strange older counselor. In the first session, we discussed our objectives. Rachel's was more complicated, with a focus on my understanding that her happiness was the primary goal of her existence, and that she had no bad intentions, only happiness. Mine was straightforward. What are your goals for these sessions, Mr. Berryman? He asked. My goal is to get them over with, I responded. Our counselor seemed disappointed. Mr. Berryman, are you honestly uninterested in dealing with the issues that have contributed to your marriage's current state? I'm sorry, Mr. Rodman, but it wasn't my issues that got my marriage to this point. And I have no desire to work on them. I am comfortable with my problems and intend to die with them. Rachel was astonished as Mr. Guru. She did not hesitate to join in. Oliver, how can we get back to where we were if you're not even prepared to address it? Oliver responded. I don't care about going back where we were or resolving issues. I am here due to a court order. I'll do what's necessary to carry out that order and then we'll return to court for the divorce. That's my plan. Mr. Pathguide explained. You should be aware that if I report to the judge that you refuse to cooperate, you may be put in contempt. I am not aware of that. I said. Do you mean if you return to the judge and lie, the sessions are being recorded? I'm sure my attorney would be delighted to subpoena the tapes and expose your perjury. I'm here. I'll do whatever you say. You asked about my aims. I told you what they were. See? I am complying. He blushed. I'm sure the judge expected you to try to resolve the issues between you. He claimed I was not responsible for the judge's expectations. I told him I was only accountable for my. He tried to make things difficult. He assigned me homework that included spending significant time with Rachel, who worked hard to wear me down. Oliver, what will it take for you to drop the divorce and resolve this? She asked. An act of God, I told her. She waited for me to explain. But I did not say anything. What do you mean by an act of God? She finally asked. Well, if you could undo what happened and make things right again, that would be ideal, I said. Otherwise, I've never heard of anyone other than God possessing such power. Have you discovered any unique abilities, Rachel? Aside from your ability to captivate others with your kindness and warmth, we persevered through the tedious task despite repeated instructions. They eventually came to an end. We returned to court and the judge asked about our progress. Elizabeth Baxter responded, Your Honor, there is no chance my client will stay married to his spouse. We seek that the divorce be granted as soon as feasible. My client and his daughter have been tortured to this procedure for too long. The judge agreed and the decree arrived 10 days later via duct mail. Toby frequently visited her grandparents, spending time with them. Rachel occasionally scheduled activities with Toby, but they were never consistent. Toby spent time with her pals, and Sabrina, a petite blonde girl, was at the top of her list. Sabrina seemed to live alongside them and was as sweet as honey. Toby and Sabrina involved the narrator in their activities. During summer break, they enjoyed water skiing and would frequently spend Saturdays at neighboring lakes. They owned a boat and an RV. On Monday, they requested to spend the weekend at the lake with a free schedule. It was an agreeable plan. Toby and Sabrina prepared and packed for Thursday. On a Friday afternoon, a red Jeep Cherokee arrived in our driveway. Sabrina exited the van, followed by another woman who looked almost identical to her. Toby embraced her with a loving hug. Dad, this is Julie, Sabrina's mother. Toby introduced Julie, shook my hand and said, Oliver, nice to meet you. The girls told me about you. Thank you for inviting me to join you this weekend. She smiled playfully and I realized where Sabrina got her appeal. I looked across to Toby, who gave me a harsh look. My legs felt weak and I knew I had to surrender. My weakness deepened when I looked at Sabs and she raised an eyebrow. It's going to be a blast, I reassured Julie while regaining my composure. We always had a wonderful time. She was not oblivious. She looked between me and the girls, then back at me. Oh, my goodness, she said, didn't you know, girls? She didn't have time to say more. She was overwhelmed in a flood of hugs, kisses, and entreaties. Mom, don't worry about it, Sabrina said, we're going to have so much fun. It's okay, Julie, Toby continued. Dad will love you as much as I do and he's a great guy. Look how we just got along. She untangled herself and gazed at them. You go sit on the porch and I'll talk to Oliver, she said. They showed some reluctance and she replied, now they take her seriously and leave. I'm so sorry, Oliver. I had no notion, she replied. I'm going to take Sabs and leave. She is going to be grounded for a month. God, this is embarrassing. She appeared so small and humiliated that I came forward and made a consoling gesture. She stiffened at first and then relaxed. Yes, this is embarrassing, I said. They are quite naughty, but you and I both know there's no danger in them. Let's just focus on it. She grinned up at me. God, she was adorable. No, I'm not married, she replied. Do you believe that's what this is about? I am almost certain. I said, here is the deal. You've packed. You've finished your weekend. It will be beautiful at the lake. I am not a bad guy. You are aware of this since you have spent time with Toby. Let us play along. It will be enjoyable. We might change them a little. What say you? She took a step back, looked over at the girls. Expectant expressions and replied, yes, let's go. I gave them a thumbs up and they jumped to their feet, racing over to join us. I heard Toby let out an ecstatic yate. I stopped them and took one under each arm. Girls, that wasn't very pleasant, I said. She looked up at me and cackled in her best Skeletor voice. I'm not kind. That pulled us all apart and I couldn't continue on. They were simply too cute and innocent. We understand what you are attempting to do, I informed them. Stop. I mean it. You can't simply go around trying to organize other people's life. Yes, but I adored Jules and I didn't know how to get you to meet her, Toby protested. Well, you could have simply told me, I said. She seemed a little forlorn. It's fine, kitten. Please, do not do that again, I said. She quickly brightened up. Sabs tugged at my arm. Let's go. I cannot wait. This is going to be awesome, Oliver. You will see. Julie laughed. I assume that it's supposed to be the pinnacle of cool, Oliver. She's correct, though. We're wasting daylight. We picked up 2 suitcases from her Jeep and entered with the boat attached. We stopped for propane and then continued our track. It took about 30 minutes to get to the lake and Julie sat in front of me. The females began playing some not-so-great music via their Bluetooth connections and we got to know each other. Julie established her own insurance company and offered financial planning services. I observed her while she spoke with someone. She was quite gorgeous. I expected Sabs to look like her when she grew up. To my astonishment, Julie was only 3 years younger than myself. She appeared considerably younger than she was. She stood about 5 feet tall with light blonde hair that reached her lower back and a lovely tan. She had big brown eyes, high cheekbones, and a beautiful heart-shaped face with a widow's peak on her broad forehead. She wore trousers and a button-up shirt. Yet she had a slim and graceful frame. I tried not to stare so I didn't look at her too closely. Until we got to the lake. We received permission to park the boat and RV. They asked me to wait outside while they were changing. I connected the water supply at the time. When they finished changing, we entered and I changed into shorts and a t-shirt. We were all set. We packed a cooler full of drinks and headed out. We left the no-wake zone and accelerated. We had traveled several miles across the lake before the girls were ready to ski. They removed their lengthy shirts, revealing their usual uncomfortable attractiveness. Julie was really gorgeous. She was thin but small. There was nothing weird about her as she turned to watch the girls play in the back. Her bikini, while not the latest fashion, failed to conceal a seductive behind. It was little, spherical, solid, and projecting like a shelf. When she noticed me staring, she just smiled and winked. Her chest was little, yet it fit her wonderfully. Everything about her was small-scale excellence. Are you finished? She inquired, her grin softening the statement. Her teeth were perfect. I laughed. For now, you know how men are, Julie? She approached and sat so she could talk to me while keeping an eye on the girls. We spent 3 hours skiing and Julie proved to be pretty excellent. She managed the boat admirably while I took my turn and she excelled at it too. Although I wasn't as skilled as Julie or the girls, I was able to keep up. The girls insisted on cooking outside when they returned to the campground despite the fact that the RV had a functional range. They set up the camp stove, and I started a fire on the grill. I grilled bratwurst while they cut and fried potatoes and onions and opened pork and bean cans. We had prepared and packed some meals at home, but this was our first night. Camp cooking is always delicious. We sat at the picnic table and immediately felt as if we had known each other for a long time. Julie became Jules, as her friends nicknamed her. And she enjoyed it. She called me Ollie. The girls remarked several times that Jules was not married. And I ultimately asked her why. I mean, you are handsome, funny, intelligent, and run your own business. Why haven't you found somebody to marry? She paused for a bit. Well, the main reason is Sabrina. She explained. I was young and inexperienced. I was a senior in college and believed I had discovered the love of my life. I found out I was pregnant about a week before graduation. I wasn't particularly upset. We had contemplated marrying as soon as we graduated. I suppose that strategy didn't work because you are discussing it in the past tense. I said no, it didn't. 3 days after telling Brad, I discovered that he had been cheating on me for a month. I dumped him and have never looked back. I didn't have much time for socializing when Sam was born. Then I got wrapped up in growing my business. By the time I could recover my breath and consider dating, I knew I had a great gift from God in my life. I couldn't do anything without thinking about her. I understand. I said, I feel the same way about Toby. As long as I have her, she will come first. I can't express how essential she is to me. She's all that has kept me sane over the last 18 months. She gently touched my arm. I understand, she replied. She confides in Sabs and myself. I apologize, Ollie. Life is not always easy. We both agree. We looked up and saw 2 pairs of warm, friendly eyes gazing us. They were having a calm talk. We sat in foldable chairs under the awning's canopy. I care about your daughter. I shared with all of her time spent with us. She feels like a member of our family. She felt the same way, she said. She told me that you're like the father she never had. Her eyes welled up with emotion and a single tear slipped down her cheek. I brushed it off with the back of my finger. She's a wonderful girl. I said, I believe her mother is a really special lady to have nurtured a girl like that. She's a pretty brave person to do that by herself. She stood up, kissed my cheek, and proceeded to join the other girls. We had a lovely weekend, and as she was leaving our house, I strolled over and tapped on her window. Jules, would you like to go out with me next Friday? I asked. Sam shouted in delight and grinned her flashing smile. What time? I asked. We will have dinner and then do something. Okay, can Toby stay at Sam's while we are gone? That sounds great. Of course, she kissed my cheek. And they were gone. Toby met me at the entrance. She inquired. Have you asked her out? Did you provide a friendly greeting? I hugged her and patted her shoulder. Yes, I did. And that is none of your concern. She giggled, recalling Sam's laughing. I knew it. She's ideal for you, Dad. I adore her so much. And Sam is like my sister. I nodded. Things happen when they are supposed to. You cannot rush it. Stop trying to organize everything. Toby nestled her cheek against my chest. I understand, Dad. I only want you to be happy. And I appreciate being the one lady you regard as a daughter. I smiled. You will always hold a particular place in my heart. You are my tiny one. And that will not change. She cuddled me briefly before scurrying off to do her own thing. The first play date went nicely. I took her to play with rackets. She was new to the game, but she had previously played with balls. so the concept of striking them was familiar. She performed admirably once she became accustomed to the rules, and hitting the walls, being a natural athlete, certainly helped. She was lightning fast and could change directions far quicker than I could. Being little served her well in this situation. We were having a break at a table outside the courts after finishing our drinks and relaxing. She took up the phone. "Let's take a photo of the children," she said. We posed with our rackets and goggles. And she took the photograph. They answered swiftly and we caught a special moment. We both went to wash our hands and I took her out to supper. We ate delicious Italian food and drank too much wine. Jules sat next to me in the booth. We leaned back and spoke gently, enjoying the easygoing atmosphere. It felt good to wrap my arm around her, so I did. She moved closer to me and smiled up at me. I reflected on how adorable she was and understood that her cuteness would remain constant as she grew older. This was something that wouldn't alter with time. She leaned over to me as we arrived at her house, her eyes finding mine hopefully. I sensed her longing for a kiss, so I obliged. The kiss was lengthy and lovely. Her lips soft and inviting, tasting of wine and cherry chapstick. As we pulled away, I pointed out the moving drapes. "I think we have an audience," I said. She giggled, her laughter reminiscent of her daughter. Or perhaps her daughter's laughter resembled hers. "I'm not surprised. They're trying to set us up right?" I inquired. She blushed. "No, I don't mind. I like everything I know about you, Ollie." "Me too," I responded. "We should probably get inside before they pull the drapes." We met every Friday for 4 months. Our connection became stronger each time. I wanted to take our relationship to the next level, but didn't want to rush her. Some of our meetings became fairly warm, but not too heated. I liked having Jules as both a friend and a girlfriend. We constantly chatted on the phone, exchanging hilarious moments or brief notes many times a day. Whenever I came across something hilarious or fascinating, I knew Jules would love it, so I shared it with her. We grew very close, learning everything about each other's life. We began having dinner together every Tuesday, and we would spend time playing games and hanging around. I grew quite fond of Sabs almost as much as her mother. They shared many similarities, and if you knew one, you knew the other. There were certain contrasts, but they both had their own distinctive appeal. The differences simply served to accentuate their similarities. Life was lovely, but Rachel's presence was a continual irritant. She was still involved in Toby's life, which meant she was in mine, too. I wanted nothing to do with her, and her presence always disturbed me. She always tried to talk to me. Whenever she picked up Toby or left him off at my apartment, Rachel lived with her grandparents and had lost her job at the clinic, much like Jerry. She found a new employment, a private clinic across town. Whenever she angered me too much, I'd bring up Jerry to damper her attempts at conversation. "How long will it take for you to forgive me?" she asked. "One day." "Forgive you for what?" I asked. "As far as I know, you don't believe you did anything wrong." "Not once have I heard." "I apologize." All of her. "I was mistaken." "I apologize." "I attempted to make Toby believe you were a liar." "I apologize." "I attempted to take her away from you." "She didn't hear it either." She couldn't take responsibility for her conduct, for offering her was uncertain. At peace. He didn't forget, but wouldn't dwell on bitterness. People can make blunders, divorce, breakups, and breaking friendships happen. People can act horribly daily in the heat of the moment. He wanted to punish the cheaters, but swiftly moved past it. Their punishment was living with their actions. He chose to live his best life, leaving the past behind. Rachel was discontent, and I ardently wished any catastrophe in the world upon poor old Jerry. But it wouldn't be via me. Let fate or the cosmos handle them. She was even more disgruntled when she found out I was dating Jules. After putting Toby off with her grandparents for the night, Rachel approached me beside the car. "I heard you're dating one of Toby's friends." "Mothers," she said. I merely gazed at her. "Is it true?" she inquired. "That's my personal matter." I responded. "The hell it is," she responded. "I'm your spouse. I have the right to know." "You have limited rights." I told her you aren't my wife anymore. You found your soulmate, and it wasn't me, remember? Then this thing called a divorce happened. My business is no longer yours, and yours is none of mine. Please, Rachel, don't stick your nose in mine again. I left the conversation feeling upset. Rachel just wouldn't let it go. I informed Toby about the problem, and she was just as frustrated as I was. From then on, we arranged for Bob and Cindy, Toby's grandparents, to pick her up at our house, instead of having Rachel do it. This modification helped decrease a substantial amount of stress in my life. On our 7-month anniversary of the lake excursion, I took Jules out. We dined at a great restaurant, and afterward went to a club. She typically stuck to beer or a single drink. She had to. That night I raised an eyebrow when she ordered the second. She chuckled. "I'm wild and crazy tonight," I said. "You're perfect." "Just as always," she questioned. "Do you honestly believe so, Allie?" She tilted her head, her hallmark motion, "Because I believe you're pretty. Perfect, too. If I'm so perfect, why haven't you invited me to spend the night?" I looked astonished and she laughed. "Have you not even thought about it?" I regained my composure. "Yeah, Jules. Since that first day on the boat, I've been thinking about you. When we started dating, I recognized you were distinct and exceptional, and I didn't want to pressure or scare you away." "You won't scare me off," she responded. "I told the girls not to wait up." "So what leads us here?" I inquired. "Do you want to spend the night with me?" She flushed as she took my hand and allowed me help her stand up. "More than anything else right now," she agreed. She leaned into me as we left, her head on my shoulder, and her hand grasping my arm all the way home. I let her off in the garage and she kept close to me until we entered the bedroom at the foot of the bed. I kissed her, a stunning moment that seemed to endure forever. Her eyes, warm brown pools, held me prisoner as she murmured, "Make love to me, Oliver." "I'm a bit afraid." I comforted her. "Don't worry. I love you. Julie Barnes. You know that, right?" "I assumed you did." She answered quietly. I needed to hear it. "I love you too, Oliver." I carefully embraced her and unzipped her blue top. I did it softly, moving my fingertips along her back, and she trembled as goosebumps appeared. When I reached the tiny dip at the base of her back close to her waist, I halted and massaged her. "There." She shivered again. Her skin felt silky like satin, and I slipped the shirt from her shoulders, permitting it to glide down her body past her chest and hips. She wasn't wearing a bra-let. It wasn't required. Her form wasn't too endowed, but it was well proportioned and complemented her body. Excessive size would have appeared weird on her. They seemed larger than they actually were due to her stature and the way they stood erect and confident. Her soaring legs were already tense, tiny, gorgeous brown spheres on little brown spots. She had a golden tan complexion all over, and I could sense she tanned without any top. I turned her around and sat on the bed, holding her at arm's length so I could look at her. I had been right. She was perfection in tiny. She had on little blue panties, and she was an exquisite doll. I pulled her to me and placed my cheek into the firmness of her tummy, cupping her lovely rear in my hands. God, that was a thrill I'd been dreaming about. It was spherical, strong, and smooth. As I ran my hands into her underwear, she giggled and flexed it under my palms, soft and tender under my touch. I stood and proceeded to remove my garments, slowly, unbuttoning my shirt. Once I was down to my underwear, I lifted her effortlessly, as if she were weightless, carrying her beside the bed. I lay her on the mattress gently. We then embraced each other, sharing a sensitive and passionate moment. He slowly touched her, feeling the soft curls and warmth prompting her to gasp. He removed her panties, appreciating her bare figure in the bed. She appeared like a beautiful angel with her light hair framing her face. He wanted to investigate more, but she stopped him. Later. All of her. I'm ready and eager. It's been so long for me. There was no objection from him. He took off his briefs and she gasped, gripping his firmness in her hands. Go slow, baby. I've never experienced anything like this. He carefully positioned himself over her, being sure not to injure her. How many relationships have you been in? He asked softly in her ear. 3, she replied, never anything like this. I approached, feeling the warmth and moisture, and got closer to her. She was pretty slick and I touched her with the tip of my finger. She gasped and strained. Wait, she whispered gently. I stopped, giving her time to rest. I changed my position and she grew more at ease with each passing moment. I went forward, softly pressing deeper, and she tensed again. It took about 5 minutes for our bodies to properly connect and another 5 for her to become acclimated to the gentle movements. Wow, Ollie, I feel full, she exclaimed. You have a lengthy finger. I smiled inwardly. I knew I was no expert, yet this small little item was proportionally proportioned everywhere. She was really tight, and had she not been very well prepared, it would have been difficult. We moved together and she made a tiny husky sound with every movement. We increased our speed and she became louder. Her whole body went in action and found myself in an unbelievable experience. She was so active, so athletic, and she poured everything she had into expressing love, just like she did everything else in life. I knew I wasn't going to last long in this incredible experience, and that was a good thing. It was thrilling. Just as I couldn't sustain it any longer, I felt the tension in her body build to a climax, then fade. She let out a little sigh and curved her back, expressing her enthusiasm as we achieved our peak together, putting our energy into the moment. We danced and bonded, finally winding down and finding our slumber. I bent over her using my forearms for support, and we enjoyed a poignant moment exchanging our affection. The entire time she continued to have contractions around me, generating a sense of intimacy even when our thrill had faded. We fell asleep in each other's arms, and twice during the night we had a loving embrace, once when I initiated it and once when she did. I woke the next morning lying on my back with a smile on my face, her hair covering us and her cheek pillared in the hollow of my shoulder. She opened her eyes and stared at me. I belonged here, Allie. I just watched her playing lazily with her hair till she nestled in and murmured, I belonged here, Allie. I know. I said, would you like to wake up here every morning? She brought her little left hand up between our faces and wiggled her fingers. I know, she said. Something seems to be missing. Hold that thought, I said. I started to get out of bed. I'll hold the thought, she said, but I can't hold something else. I need to use the restroom so urgently. I grinned and gave her a light-hearted pat on the back. Go. Then meet me back here. She raced off. And I went downstairs to my office, stopping to use the restroom myself. I got everything I needed from my safe and returned to the bedroom. She was tucked under the covers when I arrived back. I climbed in and grasped her left hand. I gazed into her eyes and saw only love. Julie, will you marry me? I gently slid the ring onto her finger. It was a bit too huge and we need to resize it later, but for now everything was great. She held up the ring and examined it. It's beautiful. She said, it looks old. Where did you obtain it? When did you obtain it? Remember I told you I was going to an auction? I replied it was approximately a month ago. Yes. I remember. They were auctioning off an estate, right? Yep. What I didn't tell you was I spotted this ring in the catalog and I went with the idea of buying it. It was manufactured in England circa 1810 for the Duchess of Avon. It has a long history. Do you like it? I adore it, she remarked. It's the most stunning ring I've ever seen. Are you going to answer my question? I asked. What? Yes, Oliver. Yes, I'll marry you. My God. Yes. I giggled and hugged my fiancée. We need to notify the girls. She said, thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this article, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you have a tale to relate regarding your or another person's circumstance, please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.